President Bola Tinubu's refusal to interfere in judicial matters is being recognized as a critical step in strengthening Nigeria's democracy. At the 30th anniversary celebration of Yusuf Ali law firm, Vice President Kashim Shettim highlighted Tinubu's non-interference in election cases, even those favoring opposition parties, as a demonstration of his commitment to the separation of powers. Shettim called on Nigerian lawyers to follow this example by defending justice and judicial autonomy. He also pointed to the government's recent legal actions to ensure financial independence for local governments.
Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we have witnessed the rise and fall of law firms in Nigeria. What sticks in our memory, years after their disbandment, is not the affluence or influence of their founding fathers. We sing praises only of those whose interventions eased access to justice and defended the vulnerable. They serve as a reminder that law is not just a money-making enterprise like any other. The moral character of lawyers is reflected in the quality of services they render, and this sets establishments like Garlic Chambers in a league of their own.
The central theme of that book is to challenge our thoughts and to invite rigor and also the application of facts and evidence to some of the things we have said or proposed about the developmental challenges that our country faces. For example, on the issue of restructuring, some people have made some fatalistic and unsustainable predictions about the future of Nigeria if there is no restructuring. They have made very extreme. If Nigeria doesn't restructure, this will happen. But there is no basis for some of those things, I dare say. The establishment of this chamber has contributed immensely to the development and sustenance of democracy in Nigeria by training and retraining of manpower needed in the judicial system. Professor Yusuf Ali's humility, hard work and dedication to work need not to be overemphasized.
Let's have this conversation with lawyer and Arise analyst Frank Tietie. Good to see you and thanks for your time. That's a big plus. According to lawyers, your colleagues, some of them very senior ones, they're talking about the president not interfering. And we also saw some senior advocate saying the same thing, plus the Vice President of Nigeria. So what does this mean in our judicial, system where we get such commendation? Does this, after all, mean that sometimes it depends on the office you hold in, you have such powers to make such interference?
I think by every standard, that is a misplaced commendation being given to the president. Highly misplaced. It has a lot of very negative implications, meaning that previous presidents have interfered with the work of the judiciary, and that is a huge indictment against the Nigerian judiciary. That is a serious attack against the Nigerian judiciary, being acknowledged by the vice president when he says that the judiciary that should have its hallmark as being independence and impartiality is saying that being presented by the vice president as being capable, being susceptible to interference by a president, especially in the determination of political cases. Now, every now and then, when one party in an election cases, in the gubernatorial election cases, in the tribunal wins, he throws commendation to the president, irrespective of the party that he belongs, and says, "Thank you, Mr. President, for not interfering, for not telling the panel of tribunal members or what to do or what not to do." That's a big shame in the democracy. That kind of commendation coming at the point where...
Frank, aren't you being cheeky about this? Isn't it possible that those who say this, because I recall even when the judgment came for the present governor of Kano State, as an example, even though he was in opposition, he also commended the president.
And that's wrong. Very wrong.
So isn't it possible that they see what you, even as a lawyer, may not have seen?
No. I am not permitted by the rules of professional conduct to say the things that I know, much more as a legal practitioner in practice. I am not permitted. Not to even talk about broadcasting rules that restrict restrict me. So I do know what is the propriety here to what is to be said. Clearly, there is judicial corruption, there is judicial malfeasance. Nothing can be more profound than the statement released by the president of the Nigerian Bar Association recently, deprecating the outcome of what has happened in Kano. So the judiciary right now is losing, fast losing public confidence. And if the statement that is being credited to the presidency at this time is commendation to the president that he didn't interfere, it should not be anything considered to be savory. Now, do not also forget that the judiciary is not meant to be dragged into matters like this. So at what point, unless we carry on a very serious judicial reform, we will continue to have this downward spiral of the reputation of the judiciary. Before now, the problem of the judiciary has been that of delayed cases, so that it doesn't defeat justice in terms of justice delayed is justice denied. But it is now unthinkable that the judiciary is now dealing with humongous forms of corruption and abuse of its processes, to the extent that judgments can be given, orders given, and the perception in the mind of the public is that they are procured. I will leave it at that. So the idea is the independence of the judiciary should not in any way be considered as a matter that can be tampered with in the first place. That is why I feel as a lawyer that it is wrong, very wrong, for any political office holder to now begin to commend the president for not interfering. What would the president have done? The president's job is not to interfere in the first place. Is it because we've had a history of presidents that have interfered, but we also had histories of judicial officers who have refused any form of entities or any form of influence in the past? That should be the norm. It is that we should be commending.
Yeah, I think that should be the norm. Should be the norm, but in some cases it doesn't look like the norm, and that is why Nigerians, everyday Nigerians, will cry foul sometimes when you see some heavyweight or a very influential person in our society get more or less like a slap on the wrist, and the artisan or the very poor of our society get a big sentence and a record time, passage of that judicial
sentence or whatever.
So at the end of the day, this goes beyond the president. It's like more or less like an everyday thing.
No, see, it's our judiciary that is being threatened. I mean, it's our democracy that is being threatened. When the judiciary fails, you need to understand that the anchor of order in any society, predictably, is the judiciary, and the sense in the ordinary, in the mind of the ordinary man, that there is justice when he looks for it. In a situation where the average Nigerian now sees that it is political office holders that determine and that influence judicial decisions, we are headed for doomsday, and it shouldn't be. So we will have to do everything possible, particularly starting from the Chief Justice of Nigeria, to reverse the trend. And that trend is to create the sanctity of the judiciary in the eyes of the people, that it is impartial and that it cannot be bought over by a political office holder. That is the concept of the democracy, of the principle of separation of powers that we run. For in fact, it is wrong. It is inappropriate for the executive to actually be passing sentence, to pass any form of judgment on the action of the judiciary. It's unthinkable. I mean, as a practitioner, it's not something that I find very funny, that you will not be determining. The public right now needs this, right? Is that what?
Isn't that because it is possible?
That is it. No, it shouldn't be. Now, let me tell you, unfortunately, most unfortunately, even the cases of malfeasance that have been, leveled against the judiciary are hardly proved. You see, the things we should be talking about is that, should we now say that because has the president been very hasty in the way he obeys court orders, obeys court judgments, or does he actually deploy the necessary resources to the courts in order to enforce judgment?
Just let me throw this in, Frank.
Has anything been different from what the previous presidents were doing?
I think it's been proven time without number. We've seen big politicians get lighter sentence, but the ordinary Nigerian gets heavier sentence, and they do the time. But the big politician, way into the whole thing, gets some kind of pardon. At what point should we see what has happened in the United States with Donald Trump happening here in Nigeria?
It's practically impossible.
Because even when you leave office, you're no longer immune to such trials. But we don't see the judiciary or people bring these people before justice.
Let's make a distinction. The administration of criminal justice system in our country is, the judiciary is simply a part of the system, and not necessarily, you cannot hold the judiciary responsible for the fact that there are some persons that appear to be above the law. In the statement by the NBA president, he attacked the behavior of lawyers. In fact, he believes, he believes that his constituency, the group, the lawyer constituency, probably is responsible for much of the decay you find in the judiciary. Do you find does any judge just issue any order or contra order or contradictory order or counter orders? It is not a lawyer that prepares the application. It's not a lawyer that goes to move an ex parte application inside the judge's chambers when nobody is there in the middle of the night. What kind of lawyer is that? The MDA will ask. What kind of lawyer who is supposed to have the ethical responsibility of ensuring that he promotes the rule of law will do everything possible to subvert the law? So let us first and foremost realize that we need to excuse the officers of the court, that is the judges, to some extent, and really look at the players. The players are the parties and their counsel, the lawyers, and they are the ones who have been turning justice upside down in this country, and then we use the judiciary as a scapegoat. I'm not changing. The idea is simply that we cannot commend the president for not interfering, whereas, as a matter of fact, worse things have been done in course of this president's tenure in the last 1 year. Lawyers have subverted the judicial system, and we've seen political players turning judiciary as a scapegoat in terms of making our democracy a mockery.
Well, I think, Frank, this is a big argument that will continue, because some Nigerians watching us today will say, Frank knows what we're talking about, because if the vulcanizer gets it to be presented before a judge,
Sulai,
he will
don't get me wrong.
He will rot away.
That is a different
matter.
But the man
who was an ex-big politician,
because he got a brilliant lawyer, he got a big lawyer who knows the judge, so that's why he's getting a light sentence. The poor don't have that, and that's why they're suffering. And I agree with you.
And when you say who knows the judge, knowing the judge does not mean familiarity. Something must have given.
And then the fact that you know the judge and you do not influence him should not deserve any form of commendation.
Well, Frank Tietie, Arise News analyst and lawyer, a delight speaking with you.
My pleasure.